The crystal chandeliers above cast fractured light across the marble floors, each shard of illumination reminding me how out of place I was here. My fingers trembled slightly as I balanced the silver tray, the weight of expensive champagne flutes making my shoulders ache. The scent of old money hung in the air, leather, cigars, and cologne that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I'd been working at Aurelia for 3 months now, long enough to know which tables tipped well and which ones treated me like furniture, long enough to perfect my invisible act. Eyes down, smile polite but not too warm, move like a shadow between the wealthy diners who never really saw me anyway. Tonight, the restaurant hummed with its usual Friday elegance. Soft piano music drifted from the corner where a man in a tuxedo played something classical I couldn't name. The clink of silverware against porcelain created a rhythm I'd grown accustomed to, almost comforting in its predictability. Almost. My feet hurt. The second-hand heels I'd bought from a thrift store last week were already cutting into my skin, but I couldn't afford anything better, not with Mom's medical bills piling up. Not with the electricity company threatening to cut our power again. I swallowed the familiar burn of exhaustion and moved toward table 7 with their second round of drinks. That's when the temperature in the room seemed to shift. I felt it before I saw anything. A change in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they softened. The maitre d', Antonio, straightened his already perfect posture. Even the piano player's fingers seemed to hesitate on the keys for just a fraction of a second. The front entrance doors opened with a whisper of expensive hydraulics. I shouldn't have looked. I should have kept my eyes on my tray, on my destination, on anything else. But my gaze betrayed me, drawn by some magnetic pull I didn't understand. He moved through the restaurant like darkness given form, tall. That was my first coherent thought. Probably 6'3", with shoulders that filled out his black suit in a way that suggested the fabric had been custom-made to worship his frame. His hair was dark, styled with careless precision, the kind of look that took either no effort or enormous amounts of money to achieve. I suspected the latter, but it was his presence that truly arrested me. Authority rolled off him in waves, an invisible force that made grown men step aside and women's breath catch. 2 men flanked him, clearly security, though they wore suits expensive enough to pass for businessmen. One spoke quietly into his wrist, eyes constantly scanning the room. Antonio rushed forward, practically bowing. "Mr. Dante, your table is ready. We've prepared the private alcove as requested." Dante. The name whispered through the restaurant like wind through dead leaves. I saw recognition flicker across faces, watched as some diners suddenly found their plates fascinating. A woman at table 9 clutched her husband's hand, her knuckles white. I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if only in whispers, in warnings, in stories told behind closed doors. Dante Salvatore. They said he controlled everything from the docks to the downtown high-rises. They said politicians answered his calls at 3 a.m. They said crossing him was the last mistake anyone made. Looking at him now, I believed every word. My heart hammered against my ribs as he moved deeper into the restaurant. His profile was sharp enough to cut. Defined jawline, straight nose, lips that looked cruel even in repose. But it was his eyes that caught me when he turned slightly, surveying the room with the casual assessment of a predator. Gray. Storm cloud gray, cold and calculating. Those eyes swept past me, and I felt the temperature drop 10 degrees where his gaze touched. I should have looked away. Should have remembered my place, my invisibility, my carefully constructed anonymity. But something kept me frozen, watching as he settled into the corner alcove that offered a view of the entire restaurant while keeping his back protected by the wall. Smart. Dangerous. Deliberate. Girl. The harsh whisper came from Marcel, the head waiter, materializing at my elbow. His cologne was too strong, as always, mixing badly with the kitchen smells that clung to his uniform. Stop staring. Deliver those drinks and get back to the bar. Don't look at him again. The fear in Marcel's voice snapped me back to reality. I nodded, forcing my feet to move, to carry me and my tray toward table 7 where a group of lawyers were celebrating something I didn't care about. But even as I smiled and placed their drinks just so, Even as I recited the evening's specials in the practiced tone I'd perfected, I felt those gray eyes on me, a brand between my shoulder blades, burning through my cheap uniform. I told myself I was imagining it. Men like Dante Salvatore didn't notice girls like me. We existed in different worlds, separated by wealth and power and 1,000 invisible walls. I was wrong. The next hour passed in a blur of orders and false smiles. My section was on the opposite side of the restaurant from the private alcove, for which I was grateful. I caught glimpses of Dante between my trips to the kitchen, always still, always watching, his security standing like statues nearby. Men approached his table periodically, bending to speak in his ear, receiving brief nods or single-word responses. He barely touched his food. A plate of something that probably cost more than my weekly salary sat largely ignored while he sipped whiskey that caught the light like amber poison. "Table 12 needs their check," Marcel hissed as I passed him near the bar. "And Mr. Dante has requested—" He paused, his face going pale. "He's requested you bring his coffee." The tray I'd been holding nearly slipped from my fingers. "What?" "No. Send Claire or—" "He asked for you specifically." Marcel's hand gripped my elbow, fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. By description, the girl with the dark hair and the nervous hands. "Don't make this difficult. Don't make him wait." My stomach dropped like a stone into dark water. I wanted to refuse, wanted to run to the kitchen, strip off this uniform, and disappear into the night. But I needed this job, needed the money that kept the lights on, and bought Mom's prescriptions, and prevented us from ending up on the street, so I nodded, hating the way my hands shook as I prepared the espresso exactly how Antonio had instructed in his panicked whisper. No sugar, no cream. The specific blend Dante apparently preferred. The walk across the restaurant felt like walking to my execution. Each step echoed too loud in my ears, despite the carpet that should have muffled everything. The conversations around me faded to white noise. All I could see was that alcove drawing closer, and the man who waited there like a king on a throne. His security stepped aside as I approached, creating a gap just wide enough for me to pass through. Up close, Dante was even more devastating. His suit probably cost more than a car, midnight black with subtle pinstripes, a white shirt that made his olive skin look like carved bronze, a tie the color of fresh blood. But it was the ring that stopped my heart. On his right hand, fourth finger, a silver ring caught the light. Intricate scrollwork wound around a center stone, not a diamond, but something darker. Onyx, maybe, or black sapphire. The pattern was unique, almost Celtic in its complexity, each curve deliberate and meaningful. I knew that ring. The espresso cup rattled against its saucer as I set it down on his table, the sound abnormally loud in the bubble of silence that surrounded us. My mouth went dry. My lungs forgot how to work properly. "Sir." My voice came out barely above a whisper. I should have stopped there, should have offered the standard, "Enjoy your evening," and retreated to safety. Instead, words I didn't plan tumbled out. "My mother wore a ring exactly like yours." The world stopped. Dante's hand, which had been reaching for the espresso, froze mid-motion. Those storm-gray eyes lifted to my face with an intensity that made me want to step back, to run, to hide. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand there like a deer caught in headlights. "What did you say?" His voice was velvet wrapped around steel, smooth, cultured, but carrying an undertone of something dangerous that made my survival instinct scream. I swallowed hard. "The ring, on your hand. My mother. She had one just like it. I've never seen another one. The pattern is unique." He finished my sentence, his gaze never leaving mine. "Yes, it is." One of his security guards shifted closer, hand moving inside his jacket, a warning. But Dante raised one finger, just one, and the man froze. The gesture was so small, so effortless, yet carried absolute authority. "Your mother." Dante's attention returned to me with laser focus. "What's her name?" "Elena. Elena Morrison." The name felt heavy on my tongue. She died. 2 years ago." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. It disappeared so quickly I might have imagined it. Morrison. He tasted the name like expensive wine. And your name? Aria. I shouldn't have told him. Shouldn't have given him anything. But refusing felt impossible, like trying to refuse gravity. Aria Morrison. The way he said it made my name sound different. Important. Sit down. It wasn't a request. My training screamed at me to refuse, to apologize and explain that I was working, that I couldn't possibly. But his eyes promised that refusal wasn't truly an option. I sat. The leather chair was softer than anything I'd ever touched, the kind of luxury I'd only ever experienced from the other side. Serving it, cleaning around it, existing in its shadow. My uniform felt cheaper than ever against the supple material, my scuffed shoes an obscenity against the pristine floor. Dante leaned back, studying me with an intensity that felt invasive, like he could see through skin and bone to every secret I'd ever kept. The dim lighting of the alcove cast shadows across his face, making him look even more dangerous. Up close, I could see a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, faded but present, a reminder that even men made of money and power could bleed. Tell me about this ring your mother had. His fingers traced the silver band absently, the gesture almost tender. Almost. Where did she get it? My throat felt tight. I don't know. She always wore it, for as long as I can remember. She never talked about it much. The memory surfaced like something pulled from deep water. Mom's hand on my forehead when I was sick. That ring cool against my fevered skin. When she got really ill, toward the end, she tried to sell it. For the medical bills. But no jeweler would take it. Why not? They said. I hesitated, aware of how insane this would sound. They said it wasn't valuable enough, just silver and semi-precious stone. But the way they looked at it, like they were afraid of it. One guy practically threw it back at her. Dante's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And where is this ring now? I have it, at home. It's the only thing of hers I kept. Everything else had been sold or donated or thrown away in the desperate scramble to pay for a funeral I couldn't afford. But the ring, I couldn't let it go. Wouldn't. He was quiet for a long moment, those gray eyes never leaving my face. I could feel his security watching me too, assessing whether I was a threat. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Me, a threat to a man like Dante Salvatore. Your mother never mentioned the name Vittoria? The question came soft, almost gentle, but I heard the steel underneath. I blinked. No? Should she have? Something dark crossed his expression. Grief, maybe, or anger long buried. Vittoria Salvatore was my sister. He paused, letting that sink in. She disappeared 26 years ago. The family searched for years. We found nothing. My heart stopped. The night she vanished, she was wearing that ring. One of a match set. 2 rings, commissioned by our father for his daughters. Unique, unmistakable. His finger tapped the silver band on his hand. I wear mine in her memory. I've worn it every day since she disappeared. The restaurant spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to anchor myself to something solid. That's impossible. My mother was Elena Morrison. She grew up in Portland. She worked as a what? Dante's voice cut through my panic like a blade. What did she do before you were born, Aria? Where was she from originally? I opened my mouth, closed it. The horrible truth was that I didn't know. Mom never talked about her past, never mentioned family or childhood friends or the places she'd lived before I came along. I'd always assumed it was painful. Maybe she was an orphan. Maybe she'd run from something. I'd never pushed because seeing that haunted look in her eyes hurt too much. I don't know, I whispered. Dante nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something he already suspected. He pulled out his phone, sleek, black, probably worth more than my car, and scrolled through it with practiced ease. Then he turned the screen toward me. The photograph stole my breath. A young woman stared back at me from the image. Maybe 19 or 20, with long dark hair and eyes the same shade of brown as mine. Her smile was cautious but genuine. and she wore a dress that screamed wealth and privilege. But it was her face that made my world tilt sideways. She looked like me. Or rather, I looked like her. The same angular cheekbones, the same slight cleft in the chin, the same way our eyes tilted up at the corners. Vittoria, Dante said quietly, taken 3 months before she disappeared. No. The word came out strangled. My mother wasn't. But even as I denied it, pieces started clicking into place. Mom's paranoia about locks and security systems in our tiny apartment. The way she'd tense whenever police cars drove past. How she never wanted her picture taken. Never had social media. Paid for everything in cash. The nightmares that woke her screaming in languages I didn't recognize. I'd thought she was just anxious, traumatized by poverty and hardship. What if she'd been running? I need to see that ring. Dante's voice pulled me back from the edge of panic. Tonight. I'm working until midnight. The response was automatic, my brain clinging to routine because everything else was falling apart. You're done working. He glanced past me, and I turned to see Antonio hovering nearby, his face pale and sheened with sweat. She's finished for the evening. Pay her for the full shift. Of course, Mr. Salvatore, right away. Antonio practically bowed as he scurried away. I should have protested, should have demanded to know by what right he could just upend my life with a few words. But the truth was, men like Dante didn't need rights. They took what they wanted, and the world rearranged itself to accommodate them. I'll have Marco drive you home, Dante continued, gesturing to one of his security guards. You'll get the ring and bring it back here. And if I refuse? The question escaped before I could stop it. Some stubborn part of me rebelling against being ordered around like a chess piece. His smile was slow, predatory, and completely devoid of warmth. You won't. He was right, and we both knew it. Not because he was threatening me, though the implicit danger radiated from him like heat from a furnace, but because I needed answers. Needed to understand why my mother had a ring belonging to a Mafia princess. Needed to know if my entire life had been built on lies. 20 minutes later, I sat in the back of a black Mercedes that probably cost more than my apartment building. Marco drove in silence, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors, his jaw set in a hard line. The leather seats were butter soft. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and danger, and I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. The drive to my neighborhood felt like descending into a different world. The gleaming towers of downtown gave way to streets lined with laundromats and check-cashing places, pawn shops with barred windows and convenience stores advertising lottery tickets. My building was a squat brick structure with a broken security door and graffiti decorating the entrance. Marco's expression didn't change, but I felt his judgment anyway. This was where I lived. This was my reality. Wait here, I said, climbing out before he could offer to escort me. I'll be 5 minutes. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, accessed by stairs that smelled like old cooking oil and marijuana. The hallway light had been broken for weeks. I fumbled with my keys in the darkness, finally getting the door open and slipping inside. The silence hit me immediately. Wrong. Something felt wrong. I flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. My pulse quickened. Had they finally shut off the electricity? I'd paid last week, but maybe. Then I saw him. A man stood in my kitchen, silhouetted against the window, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothes that blended with the shadows. My scream caught in my throat, trapped by pure terror. Don't. His voice was rough, accented. Don't scream, I'm not here to hurt you. But his hand rested on something at his hip. A gun, I realized with sick certainty. He had a gun in my kitchen. The ring, he said, taking a step toward me. Elena's ring. Where is it? My back hit the door. Who are you? Someone who's been looking for that ring for a long time. Another step. I could see his face now. Hard features. A nose that had been broken at least once. Eyes that held no mercy. Your mother stole something very valuable when she ran. The ring is the key to finding it. Now give it to me and I'll leave. Refuse and... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. My mind raced. The ring was in my bedroom, hidden in a jewelry box under my bed. If I gave it to him, I'd lose my last connection to my mother. But if I didn't, He'd tear the apartment apart looking for it, or worse. "It's in my bedroom," I whispered. He gestured with the gun. "Show me." My legs barely carried me down the short hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to fight, to do anything but cooperate with an armed intruder. But what choice did I have? I knelt beside my bed, reaching underneath for the small wooden box I'd shoved there months ago. My fingers closed around it just as I heard new sounds from the living room. A crash. A grunt of pain. The heavy thud of someone, hitting the floor. I spun around, clutching the jewelry box to my chest. Footsteps approached, quick and purposeful. My bedroom door slammed open. Marco stood there, gun drawn, his expression harder than stone. Behind him, I could see the intruder sprawled unconscious on my living room floor, blood trickling from his temple. "Mr. Salvatore said you were taking too long." Marco's eyes swept the room, assessing threats with professional efficiency. Good instincts. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. With trembling fingers, I answered. "Aurelia." Dante's voice filled my ear, smooth and dangerous. "Marco tells me you had a visitor. How did you—" But of course he knew. Men like him always knew everything. "Bring the ring. Now. And Aurelia?" A pause, heavy with unspoken meaning. "You're not safe there anymore." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building I'd only ever seen from street level. Craning my neck to count the floors until they disappeared into cloud cover. Now I stood inside it, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into a glittering carpet far below, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stepped into a different universe entirely. Marco had driven me here in silence, the unconscious intruder zip-tied in the trunk. I hadn't asked what would happen to him, didn't want to know. The space was all clean lines and expensive minimalism, leather furniture in shades of charcoal and cream, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures, a kitchen with appliances I couldn't name. But it was the view that truly disoriented me. Up here, the city looked beautiful, its poverty and grime hidden by distance and darkness, transformed into something magical by a million lights, a lie, just like everything else. "Sit." Dante emerged from what I assumed was a bedroom, having shed his suit jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink. I caught glimpses of script and symbols before forcing my eyes away. "You look like you're about to collapse." I probably was. Adrenaline had carried me this far. But now it was draining away, leaving exhaustion and shock in its wake. I sank onto the leather sofa, still clutching the wooden jewelry box like a lifeline. Dante settled into the chair across from me, separated by a glass coffee table that reflected our warped images back at us. He'd poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. Whiskey. Probably the kind that cost more per ounce than I made in an hour. "Drink." He slid one across the table. "It's not a request." I took the glass. The whiskey burned going down, but it chased away some of the cold that had settled in my bones. When I looked up, Dante was watching me with that unsettling intensity, like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "The man in your apartment works for the Kozlov family." His fingers traced the rim of his own glass. "Russian mob. They've been competitors of ours for years. If they're looking for Vittoria's ring, it means they know something about what happened to her." "What did happen to her?" The question came out smaller than I intended. Dante's jaw tightened. "That's what I've spent 2 decades trying to find out." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and suddenly the distance between us felt much smaller. My father died not knowing what became of his favorite daughter. It destroyed him, that not knowing. Turned him paranoid and cruel in his final years. There was pain in his voice, carefully controlled but present. I recognized it because I'd carried the same pain, the grief of unanswered questions, of a loved one taken too soon. "Show me the ring," he said quietly. My fingers felt numb as I opened the jewelry box. The ring sat nestled in faded velvet, catching the light exactly as I remembered. I'd slipped it on my finger 1,000 times when I was younger, pretending I was someone important, someone who belonged to something bigger than our tiny apartment and mounting bills. Dante reached across the table, and I placed the ring in his palm. Our fingers brushed, his warm, mine cold. and electricity sparked up my arm. I jerked back as if burned. He didn't seem to notice, all his attention fixed on the ring, turning it slowly in the light. I watched his throat work as he swallowed hard, watched his fingers trace the intricate scroll work with something approaching reverence. It's hers. His voice roughened. The inscription inside, see? He tilted it so I could read the tiny script etched on the inner band. VS. Fortis fortuna adiuvat. Fortune favors the bold, I translated automatically. High school Latin, one of the few classes I'd actually enjoyed. Dante's eyes snapped to mine, surprise flickering across his features. You know Latin? A little. My mother taught me. She said it was important to know where words came from. Another piece of the puzzle I hadn't understood. What waitress knew Latin? He set the ring on the table between us, then pulled off his own ring and placed it beside its twin. They were identical. Same scroll work, same stones, same inscription. Proof that couldn't be denied. Your mother was Vittoria Salvatore, Dante said, each word deliberate and final. Which makes you... Don't! I stood abruptly, needing distance, needing air. Don't say it. My mother was Elena Morrison. She worked double shifts at a diner. She clipped coupons and bought generic brand everything and died owing more money than I'll probably ever make. She wasn't some mafia princess. She was both. Dante remained seated, but his presence seemed to expand anyway, filling the room. People aren't just one thing, Aria. She could have been born Vittoria Salvatore and become Elena Morrison, could have run from this life and built another one. Why? The question exploded out of me. Why would she run from all this? I gestured at the penthouse, at the wealth and luxury surrounding us. To live in poverty? To struggle every single day? That doesn't make sense, doesn't it? He stood now, moving toward me with predatory grace. Look at what we are, Aria. Look at what this life costs. Your mother understood that price. Maybe she decided it was too high. I backed away until the window stopped me, cold glass pressing against my shoulder blades. Dante kept coming until he stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke, expensive and intoxicating. The Kozlovs won't stop looking for you, he said quietly. Not now that they know you exist, not now that they know you have the ring. Why? It's just jewelry. It's a key. His hand came up, bracing against the window beside my head, not touching me but caging me in. My father had a safe. No one could open it after he died. It required both rings, worn by his daughters, their DNA verified by sensors he'd had installed. Inside that safe are documents, accounts, information that could destroy or elevate whoever possesses it. The Kozlovs want it. My rivals want it. Hell, probably half the families in this city want it. My heart hammered against my ribs. And you? I want to protect what's mine. Those gray eyes burned into me. That safe contains my father's legacy. His secrets. His sins. I've spent years trying to access it, but I couldn't without Vittoria's ring, without her bloodline. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You mean me? You're Vittoria's daughter. Her blood runs through your veins. His free hand came up, and I flinched. But he only brushed a strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. Your family, Aria. You're a Salvatore, whether you want to be or not. I don't want to be. The words came out strangled. I want my normal life back, my apartment and my job and... Your apartment was compromised. The Kozlovs know where you live. Your job puts you in public view, makes you an easy target. His thumb traced my cheekbone, the touch feather-light but burning. That life is over. You can't go back. You don't own me. I tried to inject strength into my voice, but it came out shaky. You can't just decide how I live. The smile that curved his lips was dark and knowing. Can I? Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He stepped back, and I could breathe again. The loss of his proximity should have been a relief. Instead, I felt strangely bereft. He answered with a curt, "Talk." Listened for a moment, his expression hardening. When? How many? Handle it. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The call ended. When his eyes found mine again, they held a new intensity, and something that might have been concern. There's been an incident at one of my warehouses. I have to go." He moved toward the bedroom, returning moments later with his jacket and a gun he tucked into a shoulder holster with practiced ease. "You'll stay here. Marco will be outside the door. Don't leave. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't make any calls. You can't just lock me up here like I'm protecting you." He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, gripping my chin and forcing me to meet his gaze. "That's exactly what I'm doing, Arya. Those men who came to your apartment tonight, they would have tortured you for information, then killed you when you couldn't give them what they wanted. The Kozlovs don't take prisoners. They don't show mercy." His thumb pressed against my lower lip, and my breath caught. "You're under my protection now," he continued, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. "That means you follow my rules. That means you stay where I put you. That means you accept that your safety is my priority, even if you hate me for it. I don't even know you." But my voice came out breathy, betraying me. "You will." It sounded like a promise and a threat. "Stay here, Arya. I'll be back before morning." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a decisive click. I heard the lock engage, then Marco's voice in the hallway confirming the penthouse was secure. I stood alone in this palace in the sky, surrounded by wealth I'd never imagined, carrying the weight of a heritage I'd never wanted. The jewelry box still sat on the coffee table, both rings gleaming in the low light. I picked up my mother's ring, Vittoria's ring, and slipped it on my finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for me. I walked to the windows and pressed my forehead against the glass, looking down at the city below. Somewhere down there was my apartment, my old life. The person I'd been just hours ago. She felt like a stranger now. My reflection stared back at me, ghostly against the night. But in the glass, I didn't see Elena Morrison's struggling daughter anymore. I saw Vittoria Salvatore's legacy, whether I wanted it or not. And the terrifying truth was, standing here in Dante's world, wearing a ring that marked me as his blood, feeling the phantom heat of his touch still burning on my skin, part of me wasn't sure I wanted to go back at all. I didn't sleep. How could I? In a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud, in a room bigger than my entire apartment, wearing clothes that weren't mine, a t-shirt Dante had left out that fell to my knees and smelled like his cologne. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that intruder's gun, heard Dante's voice telling me my old life was over, felt the weight of a heritage I'd never asked for settling onto my shoulders like chains. Dawn broke over the city in shades of gold and pink, beautiful and indifferent to my crisis. I stood at the window, watching the world wake up, and wondered if my mother had stood in rooms like this once, looking out at a similar view, planning her escape. The sound of the front door opening made me spin around, heart leaping into my throat, but it was only Dante, looking somehow both exhausted and alert, his tie loosened and dark circles under his eyes. Blood spotted his white shirt, not much, but enough to make my stomach clench. "You're hurt." The words escaped before I could stop them. His gaze found me across the open space, and something flickered in those gray eyes, not my blood. He shrugged off his jacket, began unbuttoning his ruined shirt. The warehouse situation was messier than anticipated. I should have looked away as he peeled off the shirt, revealing a torso that belonged in marble sculpture. Defined muscles, smooth olive skin, and more tattoos winding across his ribs and chest. Words in Italian, dates I couldn't read from this distance, and a detailed depiction of a saint that covered his entire left side. But I couldn't look away. My mouth went dry. "You didn't sleep." It wasn't a question. Dante moved toward me with that predatory grace, now shirtless, and somehow even more dangerous for it. "I can see it in your eyes. Hard to sleep when your entire reality has been dismantled." I tried to keep my voice steady, tried not to notice how the rising sun painted his skin gold. "When you've been told you're someone you're not, you are who you've always been." He stopped close enough that I could see faint scars scattered across his torso. Evidence of a violent life. "You're just learning there's more to the story." "What happened at the warehouse?" His jaw tightened. "The Kozlovs sent a message. 6 men, armed, tried to burn it down. They failed." The way he said it made clear they'd paid dearly for that failure, but it confirms what I suspected. They're escalating. They know about you, and they're getting desperate. Because of a safe? Because of whatever's inside it? Because of power. Dante moved past me to the window, staring out at his kingdom. My father controlled this city for 40 years. When he died, that control fractured. I've spent the last decade consolidating it, rebuilding what was lost, but there are families who want to take it from me. The Kozlovs, the Marchettis, even some within my own organization who think I'm too young, too different from the old ways. He turned back to me, and the vulnerability in his expression startled me. Just a flash, quickly hidden, but real. That safe contains proof of alliances, of debts owed, of secrets that could cement my position or destroy it entirely. Whoever controls that information controls everything. His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. And you, Aurelia, are the only person alive who can help me open it. I should have stepped back, should have demanded he stop touching me. But his palm was warm against my cheek, his thumb tracing patterns that made my skin tingle, and my traitorous body leaned into the contact. What if I refuse? I whispered. You won't. Such certainty in those 2 words. Because you're as curious as I am. Because you want to know what your mother was running from. Because despite everything, you feel it too. This pull between us. My breath caught. There's no pull. You're just what? He stepped closer, his free hand finding my waist, spanning it easily. Just a monster? A criminal? A man you should run from? Yes. But I didn't run, didn't pull away. Stood frozen as he bent his head, his lips hovering inches from mine. Then why are you still here? His breath ghosted across my mouth. Why haven't you screamed for Marco to let you out? Why are you wearing my shirt and looking at me like... The buzzer from the private elevator shattered the moment. Dante's entire demeanor shifted in an instant, the vulnerability vanishing, replaced by cold authority. He stepped back, and I could breathe again. That'll be Sophia. He moved toward the bedroom, grabbing a fresh shirt. My cousin. She'll take you shopping, get you clothes and anything else you need. I have clothes at my apartment. Your apartment is being watched by at least 3 different organizations. He emerged, buttoning a charcoal shirt that probably cost more than my monthly salary. You're not going back there, ever. The finality in his tone sparked anger in my chest. You can't just decide that. I already have. He checked his gun, holstered it, and moved toward the elevator. Sophia will explain the rules. Follow them, Aurelia. I won't be lenient if you put yourself in danger. The elevator doors opened, revealing a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall, elegant, with honey blonde hair and a sleek ponytail, and designer clothes that screamed wealth. She swept into the penthouse like she owned it, her sharp brown eyes immediately finding me. So this is the mystery cousin everyone's talking about. Her smile was calculating. Vittoria's daughter. You have her eyes. Sophia, play nice. Dante kissed her cheek in greeting, a gesture so casual it spoke of deep familiarity. She's had a difficult night. Haven't we all, darling? Sophia circled me like a predator assessing prey. Though I must say, Dante's t-shirt is not your look. We'll fix that. I'll be at the office. Dante headed for the elevator, then paused, looking back at me. Stay with Sophia. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't trust anyone who isn't family. I don't even know who family is anymore. The words came out more bitter than I intended. Something softened in his expression. You will. Then he was gone, and I was alone with Sophia, who was already scrolling through her phone with perfectly manicured nails. Right then, she said briskly. Let's get you looking less like a stray Dante picked up and more like a Salvatore. We have a reputation to maintain. The next several hours passed in a blur of boutiques I'd never even noticed existed, tucked away in buildings that required buzzing in, where staff greeted Sophia by name, and champagne appeared without asking. I stood like a mannequin while women measured and pinned and suggested, while Sophia approved or dismissed with a flick of her wrist. Dresses, jeans, shoes, lingerie, all in sizes that fit perfectly, all costing amounts that made my head spin. I tried to protest, but Sophia waved me off. Dante's orders. Besides, you can't walk around looking like... She gestured vaguely at my thrift store existence. That. You're a Salvatore now. People will be watching. I'm not a Salvatore, I said for what felt like the 100th time. I'm just me, Aurelia Morrison. Sophia's laugh was sharp. Darling, the moment you showed Dante that ring, you stopped being just anything. You're leverage now. You're valuable. You're dangerous. She studied me over her champagne glass. The question is whether you're smart enough to survive it. And if I'm not, her smile didn't reach her eyes. Then you'll end up like Vittoria, disappeared, forgotten. A footnote in family history, the word sent ice through my veins. You think someone in the family killed her? I think everyone has secrets, sweetness. And the Salvatore family has more than most. Sophia stood, smoothing her skirt. Come on. One more stop. Then we'll get you back to your gilded cage. The last stop was a salon where women with faces pulled tight by too much Botox wielded scissors like weapons. They transformed my hair, trimming, shaping, adding subtle highlights that somehow made me look expensive. When they spun me toward the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The girl staring back looked polished, sophisticated, like she belonged in Dante's world. I hated how much I liked it. Much better, Sophia approved. Now you look like you could actually be Vittoria's daughter instead of some charity case. Back at the penthouse, Marco helped carry up dozens of shopping bags, while Sophia directed him like a general commanding troops. The sun was setting again, an entire day lost to this strange new existence. Dante wants you ready by 8, Sophia said, checking her phone. He's taking you somewhere. My stomach tightened. Where? He didn't say. But wear the black dress, the one with the back detail, and the Louboutins. She air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume cloying. Welcome to the family, cousin. Try not to die. Then she was gone, and I was alone again with my reflection. With these expensive clothes that felt like a costume, with the growing certainty that I was being pulled into something I didn't understand and couldn't escape. I found the black dress Sophia mentioned. It was stunning, elegant and understated, with an open back that would show skin, but in a sophisticated way. The kind of dress I'd admired on other women but never imagined wearing. When I slipped it on, it fit perfectly. Of course it did. At exactly 8, the elevator opened. Dante stepped out, and I watched his eyes travel over me. Slow, thorough, possessive. The hunger in that gaze made my knees weak. Perfect, he said quietly. Are you ready? For what? His smile was dangerous. To claim your inheritance. The vault sat 3 levels beneath the city, in a building that looked abandoned from the outside, but housed secrets worth more than entire fortunes. Dante led me through corridors lined with reinforced steel, past guards who nodded respectfully, into an elevator that descended into the earth like we were journeying to the underworld. His hand rested on the small of my bare back, warm against my skin, possessive in a way that should have bothered me, but instead sent electricity racing up my spine. I was acutely aware of him beside me. The cedar scent of his cologne, the controlled power in every movement, the heat radiating from his body. You're nervous. His thumb traced circles against my skin, the gesture almost soothing. Shouldn't I be? The elevator seemed too small suddenly, the air too thin. I'm about to open a safe that half the criminal underworld wants access to, with a man I barely know, wearing a dress that costs more than I used to make in a month. You know me. His voice dropped to something intimate. Dangerous. You've known me since the moment you saw that ring, Arya. You just didn't realize it yet. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a corridor lined with marble, at the end of which stood a massive vault door that looked like it belonged in a bank. 2 more guards flanked it, armed and alert. Dante guided me forward, his hand never leaving my back. As we approached, the guards stepped aside, and I saw the vault's locking mechanism, complex and clearly custom-made, with 2 circular indentations set side by side. The rings go there, Dante explained, gesturing to the indentations. But that's not enough. The system will scan our DNA. Mine as Antonio Salvatore's son, yours as Vittoria's daughter. Both bloodlines required, or it stays locked. My hands trembled as I looked at the rings we both wore. And if it doesn't work? If I'm not really, you are. He turned me to face him, both hands framing my face now. I've seen the photos, Arya. I've watched you move, heard you speak. You have her mannerisms, her spirit. You're Vittoria's daughter. Don't doubt that. Something in his certainty steadied me. I nodded, and together we approached the vault. On 3, Dante said, positioning his ring over one indentation, while I held mine over the other. 1, 2, 3. We pressed the rings into their slots simultaneously. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then light flooded upward from beneath the rings, blue and white, scanning and analyzing. I felt a brief warmth against my finger, almost like the ring was alive. Beside me, Dante stood perfectly still, tension radiating from every line of his body. A mechanized voice echoed through the corridor. DNA verified. Antonio Salvatore, male heir. Vittoria Salvatore, female heir. Access granted. The vault door groaned, centuries-old mechanisms engaging with modern technology. Slowly, impossibly, it swung open. Dante's hand found mine, our fingers interlacing. Together, we stepped inside. The vault was smaller than I'd expected, but packed with history. Safety deposit boxes lined the walls. A desk sat in the center, and on it, a leather portfolio embossed with a crest I was coming to recognize, the Salvatore family seal. Dante released my hand and moved to the portfolio, opening it with reverence. Inside were documents, photographs, ledgers filled with handwriting in Italian. He studied them with an intensity that made his earlier focus seem casual. Letters of agreement with families across 3 continents, he murmured. Records of deals my father made, proof of alliances that were never documented officially. His finger traced a particular page. And here, the real reason the Kozlovs want this. He turned the portfolio so I could see. A photograph showed 2 men shaking hands. One I assumed was Dante's father, the other a hard-faced man with Slavic features. Mikhail Kozlov, patriarch of their family, Dante explained. 28 years ago, he approached my father with a proposal, a merger of territories. My father agreed, on one condition. Mikhail's eldest son would marry Vittoria, uniting the families. My blood ran cold. No. She refused. Dante's voice hardened. Refused the marriage. Refused to be used as a bargaining chip. She and my father fought for months. He wouldn't relent, and she... He paused, pain flickering across his features. She disappeared the night before the wedding was supposed to take place. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. She ran. She got as far away as she could, changed her name, built a new life, and Mikhail saw it as the ultimate insult. Dante closed the portfolio. He blamed my father for not controlling his daughter. The alliance dissolved. Territories that should have been shared became battlegrounds. Mikhail's son, the one Vittoria was supposed to marry, he died in the conflicts that followed. So they've been hunting her all these years. For revenge. For closure. For retribution. For the power this vault represents. Dante's hand swept to indicate the safety deposit boxes. There's more here than just documents, Aurelia. There's money, securities, information on politicians and judges and police chiefs. Everything needed to control this city completely. I backed away from the portfolio, from the weight of all this history. I don't want this. I don't want any part of it. Too late. Dante caught my wrist, pulling me back to face him. The moment you touched that ring, you became part of it. The Kozlovs know you exist now. They won't stop coming for you. Then I'll disappear, like my mother did. She spent 26 years looking over her shoulder, Aurelia, dying poor and afraid, never knowing peace. His grip tightened. Not painful, but inescapable. Is that the life you want, or do you want to stand and fight? Take what's rightfully yours and use it to protect yourself? I don't know how to be what you're asking me to be. Then learn. He pulled me flush against him, and I could feel his heart beating as fast as mine. I'll teach you. I'll protect you. But you have to trust me. You're a criminal. A killer. But my hands had somehow ended up on his chest, feeling the hard muscle beneath expensive fabric. Yes. No apology. No excuse. But I'm also the only thing standing between you and a dozen different organizations that would use you, torture you, or kill you to get what's in this vault. I'm your best option, Aurelia. Your only option. He wasn't wrong, and we both knew it. What do you want from me? The question came out whispered, breathless. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back so I had no choice but to meet those storm-gray eyes. Everything. Your trust, your loyalty, your presence in my world. His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath caught. You, Aurelia, I want you. You don't even know me. I know you're brave enough to confront a Mafia boss about a ring. I know you worked yourself to exhaustion to take care of your mother. I know you could have run a dozen times tonight, but you're still here. His forehead pressed against mine, intimate and intense. I know that you're mine, whether you accept it yet or not. Possessive, I breathed. Obsessive. His correction was unapologetic. From the moment you walked into my restaurant, Aurelia. From the second I saw Vittoria's spirit in your eyes. You're mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. Mine. I should have protested. Should have pushed him away. But when his lips finally claimed mine, I melted into him instead. The kiss was nothing gentle. It was possession and promise. Hunger and heat. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me impossibly closer, while mine fisted in his shirt like I was drowning and he was air. The vault. The documents. The danger. All of it faded until there was only this. Only him. Only the feeling of coming home to a place I'd never known I'd been missing. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine again. Stay with me, he said quietly. Not as a prisoner. As family. As mine. Let me teach you this world, protect you in it. Let me... He paused, something vulnerable crossing his features. Let me have what my father lost, a Salvatore daughter, alive and fierce and here. And if I say no, then I'll still protect you, because I won't let anyone hurt what's mine. But I'm hoping you'll say yes. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I'm hoping you feel this too, this pull, this inevitability. We're bound by blood and history, Aurelia. By rings that were made to match, and fates that were always meant to collide. I looked past him to the vault, to the portfolio containing my mother's history, to the legacy she'd run from and I'd inherited anyway, then back to Dante, dangerous and beautiful, and looking at me like I was something precious he'd fight the world to keep. My mother had run, had spent her life hiding, struggling, afraid. I could make a different choice. Teach me, I said finally. Teach me how to survive in your world. How to be a Salvatore without losing myself. How to turn this legacy into something I choose instead of something that chooses me. The smile that transformed his face was devastating. I'll teach you everything. He kissed me again. Softer this time, but no less consuming. When he pulled back, there was triumph in his eyes, possession and satisfaction, and something that might have been wonder. Come on, he said, taking my hand. Let's go home. Home. The penthouse that I'd thought of as a prison just hours ago, but walking out of that vault with Dante's hand wrapped around mine, his ring matching the one I wore, his protection surrounding me like armor. It didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like the beginning of something inevitable. 3 months later, I stood at the window of the penthouse, our penthouse now, watching the city lights flicker to life as evening descended. My reflection showed a woman I was still getting used to, polished, confident, wearing designer clothes like they'd always been mine. Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Thinking about her? Always. My mother's ring, Vittoria's ring, caught the light on my finger. Do you think she'd be proud? Or horrified? Both, probably. His lips brushed my temple. She ran from this life to protect you. But you're choosing it, reshaping it, making it something different, something better. Under Dante's guidance, I'd learned the intricate dance of this world, learned which families could be trusted and which required constant vigilance, learned to read the subtle shifts in power, to navigate dangerous social situations with grace, learned that being a Salvatore meant responsibility as much as privilege. I'd also learned that Dante's obsessive protectiveness, his jealous possessiveness, came from a bone-deep fear of losing another person he cared about. His sister's disappearance had scarred him in ways I was only beginning to understand. So I let him have his security details, his rules about where I could go and who I could see, because I understood now they weren't chains. They were love, twisted and fierce and sometimes suffocating, but real. The Kozlovs sent another proposal, Dante said against my ear. They want peace. They want to negotiate. And I told them the price of peace is their acknowledgement that Vittoria made her choice, that her daughter is under my protection, and any threat against you is a declaration of war. I turned in his arms to face him. You'd go to war for me? I'd burn the entire city for you. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone in that gesture I'd come to crave. You're mine, Arya, my family, my responsibility, my obsession. His voice dropped. My love. The word hung between us, finally spoken after months of showing it in 1,000 ways, in protective touches and jealous glares, in patient teaching and fierce defense, in kisses that promised forever. I love you too, I whispered, and watched his eyes darken with possession and triumph. Outside, the city sprawled before us, dangerous and beautiful, ours to navigate together. I was Arya Morrison, who'd served drinks and struggled to survive. I was Vittoria Salvatore's daughter, heir to a legacy I was rewriting. I was Dante's, his partner, his equal, his to protect and possess and love with terrifying intensity. I was all of it, and I'd chosen this, chosen him, chosen to stand instead of run, to claim instead of hide. My mother had given me life by running. I would honor her by living, fiercely, fearlessly, and on my own terms. Dante's lips found mine again, and in that kiss was every promise we'd made, and every danger we'd face. Together. Always together. The city glittered below us like scattered diamonds, and for the first time since that night in the restaurant, I felt like I'd finally come home.